Hey, according to Jim's watch, it's 7 o'clock. And we're ready to go. So all you folks out there in the lobby, if you want to pass the test, you better come in now.
No cookies unless you come in now.
Oh. Now, she had some chocolate chip cookies up here. They'd all be in here from the smell. Okay.
Testing 1, 2.
Well, let's have a word of prayer about the Holy Spirit here. Dear Father, it's so good to know that you're always part of our lives. And we ask now that you be here in this sanctuary and let us receive a blessing. These things I asked in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. I always want to call him pastor. You never pastored this church. Is that correct? You did for a while?
Pastor Manning.
Pardon?
Oh, no, I never pastored
But
here.
when I was the ministerial secretary, some of you don't know what that is, but I was the person who dealt with all the pastors in Nevada and Utah and half of California and a part of Arizona, believe it or not.
I met you in Bishop.
Yeah.
That I had just been invited to come to this conference.
Okay. Anyway, I always end up calling him pastor because he pastored for us, if you will. And I don't want to embarrass him, but I used to say to people, you got a church that's in trouble, I got a man that I'll put in there, and the troubles will be done before long. And it was Jerry. All right, what it is and what it isn't. I thought you'd be disappointed if I didn't show you a picture of my girls when they were 3 and 5. And an American epidemic, a silent killer. And this article was in a magazine some time back, what we call diabetes. And it's not caused by sugar. A lot of people think that sugar is the problem. I don't know if I should tell you this right now, but when your cells, every cell in your body has a little furnace in it. Did I not say that last night? That burns, consumes fuel. And there's only 4 things that provide fuel for us. Carbohydrates, proteins, a couple of other kinds of things. And that furnace, burn is a little bit of a metaphor, but that furnace chemically uses those things to provide energy. And when you burn pure sugar, this may sound strange to you. When you burn pure sugar with that little furnace in your cell, you get water, you get carbon dioxide, and energy. I don't know why I'm doing this. Carbon dioxide is actually good. Did you know that? They're worried about carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide makes plants grow. Did you know that? Carbon dioxide is the fuel for plants to grow. And I'll get off of that topic, though. I wasn't paid to come here and do that. I wasn't paid to do anything, but anyway. Today, 1 person in 11 has diabetes. By 2050, according to the International Diabetes Federation out of Sweden. In America, it will be 1 out of 4. That's how rapidly we are going in this country. The International Diabetes Federation, very well respected. In the Philippines, where I worked recently, it's 1 out of 7. Their dietary habits are even worse than the United States. And here's Dr. John McDougall, the father of this, if you will, modern movement to be well by living wisely, has said that 100% of diabetes. Now, when we say diabetes, just talking, we always mean what we call type 2. I'll talk a little bit about the differences, but 100% of it is what? Preventable. And amazingly enough, 100% is reversible. Isn't that amazing? All these clinics out there where people have to go every other day or whatever it is for treatments or the pills they get. And do you know, folks, that all these pills we take are poison? Did you know that? Yeah, our body doesn't want them. But they do things that can be helpful. And so we submit to the poison part in order to get, some help. But this is what's actually going on if you magnify a great deal. Each of these things is a cell. And I made a little drawing here that when I got far away, it doesn't look very well. But this cell is made up of 2 rows of fats. And the fats have 3 legs. I don't know if you can see that. I have a little dot for the top of it, and then the 3 legs. So everywhere you touch, folks, everywhere, inside or outside your body, you are touching cells. And their structure is different depending on different cells, but the basic structure is the same. And there are proteins all over the place. I tried to draw one. They have different shapes depending on what they're going to be doing all over this cell. And some of them are called receptors because they will grab something out of not necessarily out of the blood, but out of the watery liquid that they're all in. Inside of our bodies, it's all watery liquid, isn't it? And of course, there's pipes and so forth. And these proteins that are called receptors will grab something and pull it inside the cell. And all of those receptors, our body makes them. The cell makes all the receptors it needs, and there could be hundreds or even thousands of different things that the cell needs, and it uses these receptors in that process. So you see the cells here, and they're kind of close together. And then there's the blood vessels. This is a arteriole. Now you know the word artery, which we use the word artery when you can actually see it on the back of your hand. Can you do that? Tip your hand back and see the now some of them are muscles, but there's, when they stick the needle in there and you do a blood, that's because they're sticking the needle into an arteriole or a vein, depending on what they're trying to do, if they're trying to put something in or out. But when the artery is very tiny, we give it this different name than artery. And all over our bodies, these arteries, these arterioles, break into a whole bunch of tiny, tiny pipes that we call capillaries. You know that word, don't you? And the capillaries are so tiny that the blood cells that are in the arteries and the arterioles have to travel through in single file. In fact, they have to push their way through because the tube is small if there's no red blood cells there. And then all of the nutrients that are needed for all of these cells, including the cells that make the artery and the arteriole and the capillaries, are in the fluid, inside and outside. It's an amazing, complex system, friends, that you and I are. Now, this is a actual photograph about 10 million times magnified of a capillary, and there's the wall of the capillary. Can you see what I'm pointing at okay? Just to make sure, it would be this wall here that I was pointing at, only this picture, we're looking at it cut off, and we're looking at the end of it. Does that make sense? We call it a cross-section. Have you ever heard that word? And you can see that the capillary is lined, besides the wall of the capillary, it's lined with structures. And this spot is where the blood actually flows. It has a fancy name that starts with the word L, but I'm not going to bother you with that. And when someone has diabetes, this wall of the capillary becomes swollen. And what does that do for the ability of a red blood cell to pass through the capillary? Some are shaking their head, some are still looking at me. What does it do? Inhibits, right? I have one of my former students grew up and became a nurse. She and her family and Neva and I become close friends with her. And her primary work is wound care. You all know about this, I think. Somebody with diabetes, their wounds will not heal. Why? Because these things are so packed tightly, it's poor circulation. You get those people on a proper lifestyle, folks, and those wounds will heal up in a few days, all of them. It's just astonishing. But of course, you and I, well, I'm sorry. You and I are different. The people out there, they don't want that lifestyle. And so it's an amazing story. How well we could be if we let our bodies have the right kind of food and the right kind of activity. Now, Dr. Roy Swank, I know this man. He passed away actually a while ago. A very famous physician for his research. Worked there in Portland at the University of Oregon Medical School. And he became an expert in healing people that have various kinds of circulation problems. And he wrote a book describing this. He says, a heavy fat diet causes changes in circulation. After a typical high-fat American meal, the red blood cells become very sticky, and they bind to one another. About 3 hours after the meal, they aggregate together to form clumps. And these clumps are large enough and tough enough, they can obstruct circulation in the capillaries. So it's a terrible situation that is faced when these things start happening to us. By the way, I said last night, I'm very comfortable with questions, so please feel free to raise your hand. And the rule is if I point to you and keep talking for a moment, it means I want to finish my thought, and then I'll take the question, and maybe I can answer it. Maybe I'll have to say, I don't know. I can think of a lot of questions that I don't know the answer to. As you'll see in a few minutes, it's not the sugar. You cannot give people enough sugar to make them diabetic. Would you please underline that in your mind? We call it sugar diabetes, but it's not caused by sugar. You just wait and see. You'll see the pictures in a minute. So the red blood cells normally have an electrical charge, but when we don't treat our bodies right with nutrition, the charges go away and the red blood cells stick together, and guess what happens to circulation? It's decreased. And this is the problem in the world with diabetes. So type 1 diabetes is a small number in terms of the diabetes that is out there. You probably know that type 1 diabetes is caused by the pancreas to no longer be able to make beta cells that are essentially insulin. The beta cells make the insulin that our bodies need to control the sugar in our bodies. And so it's a fairly small number of diabetes that's type 1 diabetes. The big issue is 95% of diabetes is what we call type 2, which is the result of what we're eating and how we're eating, as you'll see in a few minutes. Gestational diabetes, women who are pregnant are at more risk to get type 2 diabetes. We just call it gestational because if you just get them out to walk a half a mile 4 times a day, their gestational diabetes usually just clears up right away. Changing their diet will help, of course, some. And then diabetes insipidus occurs in a situation in the brain, which is quite rare, but it affects the insulin that we need, and so that's an issue. Type 3 diabetes is a brand new term, but it is being accepted in our medical literature as what we call type 3 diabetes now, Alzheimer's disease. And I told some of you this morning that if you were here during the church service, that probably most of the people in this room this morning and most of you that are here right now are on the road to type 3 diabetes. We all know about it, don't we? We all have friends, fathers, mothers, uncles, aunts that have come down with Alzheimer's disease. And you kind of all know that we're sort of headed there if we're not careful. Isn't that right? And that's what I want to look at with you here this evening, because you can certainly change that. This is the big one as far as diabetes is concerned. Complications are amazing. Poor circulation, I showed you why that was. Increase in heart disease, greatly because of diabetes. Strokes increase. Blindness, you know about this. One of the big problems with diabetes, sight eventually becomes worse and worse until the people are blind. Amputations. Do you know, friends, we cut off 143 legs every day in this country because of diabetes. You don't cut the leg off, what would happen? Person would die from the toxicity that's going on in their leg. And it can be other limbs as well, but legs are the most common one. It's amazing. And what did Dr. McDougall say about that? What percent could be reversed? All of it. Amazing. Kidney failure. Big, big issue with diabetes. And of course, early demise. Peripheral neuropathy. That's a funny word, peripheral. It means out there at the edge, which for most people that have diabetes starts in the feet. Sometimes it'll be in the hands, but it's in the extremities where, because it's far away, it's harder under the things we saw on the screen to get the blood out there and back. So the places that are farther away from the heart are the first ones to start having not enough nutrition for the nerves to work properly, and it becomes, first of all, kind of just funny sensitive, and then it becomes painful, and 100% of diabetic neuropathy can be reversed by a change in lifestyle. Amazing. Gastroparesis, poor circulation in the stomach, and so digestion doesn't take place properly, and there's all kinds of issues. Infections, I talked about that with my former student who's a wound care nurse. Cataracts, all these things increased or almost entirely because of diabetes. Amazing. Larger babies, and because they're getting too much nutrition, if you will, and therefore they are born more early because the mother's body realizes it's time to get rid of this thing, and so there's issues there with premature birth. Ulcers, that's a wound that just doesn't heal. You can have internal ulcers. Normally when we talk in this context, we're talking about ulcers that are on the surface somewhere in our body. So years ago, we diagnosed diabetes with a blood sugar of 140 milligrams or more of sugar. About 35 years ago, that was changed to 125. And we invented then a new category of diabetes. We called it pre-diabetes. People are on the way to getting diabetes if they had a blood sugar of 110. And the current diagnosis is done with what we call hemoglobin A1C. How many have ever heard of that term? By now, almost everybody has. If I get a chance, I'd like to explain to you what that is. But it's a way for us to know what the blood sugar has been on the average for the last 3 months. So that's a much better measure, because people used to say, oh, I'm going to see the doctor Tuesday, I'll wise up here for a few days. But no, now we look at the hemoglobin A1C, and that tells us what the blood sugar has been for the last month or more. It's just that is the standard for measuring whether someone has diabetes or not. Pre-diabetes, the A1C would be in that range from 5.7 to 6.4. Diabetes itself, 6.5 or higher. And it measures the average blood sugar, if you will, average blood sugar over a period of the last 3 months. We used to call this child onset because it occurs more frequently in children. But It's also called insulin dependent because children would die. It's a terrible story of how these children way back 100 plus years ago would die from type 1 diabetes. Just sad story. And by the way, the first, I don't want to go down this path with you today. I'd be happy to do it, but we don't have the time to do that. The first GMO that was ever done was to take actually an E. coli bacteria, and here's the DNA there in the E. coli bacteria, and insert there in the DNA a little piece of DNA that has the information for the cell to make insulin. Got that? So that cell, you can do this with any cell, virtually any cell. It's a very tricky thing. You actually have a virus carry that piece of DNA into the cell and stick it into the DNA of the cell. And remember what I told you earlier? Our body makes all the proteins we need, and insulin is a protein. And so scientists figured out how to put the piece of DNA that codes for it. Does that make any sense what I'm saying? It has the information for the cell to make insulin. And the fancy way that scientists like to say, this piece of DNA codes for insulin. Another piece of DNA that you already have on your own would code for a different protein. That was done in 1978. And it was tried for a couple of years, and once it was shown to be, if you will, okay, it's one way to treat type 1 diabetes, is to insert this, I'm sorry, what we do is we insert this in a cell, and the cell then starts making insulin, and that's what we give to the children that have type 1 diabetes. So, but that was done not too many years ago, 78, of course, it's a while now, and totally changed the picture of keeping these kids alive. Now, what we did for a long time is give them shots of insulin, but now with this, we can get actual human insulin. You actually put the DNA in here is human insulin. I don't know if you know this. Every living creature makes insulin, but it would maybe be a slightly different structure depending on whether it was a fish or a cow or a person or whatever. And so we, in this case, are able to make human insulin, which we can give to whoever needs it, child or not. Adults can get type 1 diabetes, of course. Small percentage, and you give them the same amount of insulin that their bodies would make if they could, and it works quite well. Few complications. Now, the culprit in diabetes is not a viral infection, or it's not caused by necessarily cow's milk. It's caused by something, we call it now, we used to call it adult onset. It's also called non-insulin dependent, and 95% of the diabetes in this country is what we call type 2. But the amazing thing is, we can treat this, but it's still, there's no medicine that's ever just perfect. But the fact that we can give these people insulin that is just like the insulin their bodies would make is helpful. The problem is, you give more and more insulin, and it doesn't, those people die early, even though you can give them insulin. There's things going on that make this whole problem difficult, and there's complications for everybody, even though you give them insulin like this, that's actually like the insulin their bodies would make. So they're two completely different diseases. Dr. Anderson, I don't know this man personally. I mentioned this morning that I have listened to him. He's passed away some years back now, but I've listened to him do many lectures. He was very famous for trying high carb, high fiber diets for men that had diabetes. And he was trying to understand how to make them well. He took a group of people with diabetes and found out he could stop giving them insulin if he put them on a high carb, high fiber diet. What have you heard about carbohydrates? Bad for you. And he put these people on a high carb diet, and guess what? They got well. Of course, where did he get the carbohydrates? From plants. He was the first fellow that really saw this and became quite well known because of his research. Insulin therapy discontinued, I'll point to it here, in 9 patients who were getting quite a bit of insulin. In 2 patients that were getting a lot more, he was able to stop giving them insulin because of changing their diet. And guess what? Their cholesterol dropped from pretty high figures to pretty low figures in just 16 days. Now, we've had some experience with this. My wife and I have conducted, we don't do these anymore, but some years back, we conducted a number of stop smoking programs, and we would test people's blood on Sunday, the day they arrived, and on Friday, the day they left. And in those 5, and we fed them according to what we believe is the right thing. And in that short 5 days, it's amazing how much their cholesterol dropped and other things that were bad for them just because we put them on a plant regimen. And they were willing to put up with it because we were helping them quit their smoking. But they had such great results from it. It was kind of a similar thing here that we were able to get them off of their terrible diet, and they got not only quit smoking, but they got all kinds of benefits. I'm sorry, thank you. Let me back this up. And
I have to use the mic because I want to hear the question.
yeah, who raised their hand? Okay, go ahead.
Is type 1 diabetes reversible? And did you say that, let me see, that the neuropathy could be reversed in type 1 diabetes?
No, type 1 diabetes, the body is not making insulin. And so you have to provide insulin for them. But if you do it, if you give them insulin and if you put them on a plant regimen, they can be perfectly well. But their body still can't make insulin, so you have to give it to them. But to really make it work well, they need to change their lifestyle. You can give them all the insulin they need, but the American lifestyle, friends, is killing us. You understand that? And so if you want them to be well, they're going to have to not just get insulin. So,
Okay, so neuropathy could be reversed in type 1?
oh, yes.
With a plant-based diet?
Oh, yes. I told the story this morning, or was it last night? My wife and I, when I retired, and a number of you know that I worked here in this area for 7 years. When I retired, we bought property up in Washington State. This was our plan. And we bought 40 acres and we built some cottages for people to come and live with us for a week, and we would teach them how to get well from all kinds of lifestyle-caused diseases. And now, why am I telling that story? What was the question? Oh, yes. So I told this story, but let me retell it for several of you that maybe weren't here. So a pastor that we actually had met earlier came there. His blood sugar was off the chart. He was overweight. He couldn't feel anything from his knees. Nothing on down. If you can imagine trying to walk when you can't feel anything. And he had actually worked for us. Some of you know that, maybe you don't know, but Neva and I opened a whole plant regimen restaurant in Seattle. Anybody know that before I mentioned it? Anybody know the name of that place? 5 Loaves Deli and Bakery. We opened another restaurant. I had the vision of opening a restaurant and a medical clinic next to each other all over Seattle. But we rapidly ran out of money. We opened another one in West Seattle called the Pocket Place because we made pocket bread. And we opened a medical clinic next door to that restaurant. But anyway, where was I going with the story of, what's that? Oh, yeah. So they come on Sunday afternoon. We feed them a meal Sunday evening. The rest of the week, we just give them 2 meals, breakfast and a kind of a later lunch. He walked into the classroom in the morning. I was going to give my first lecture at about 9:30 in the morning. And he said to me, I'll try to copy the inflection. He said to me, my neuropathy is getting better? After how many days? 2 days. Did I say it was Tuesday? It was Tuesday morning. After 2 days on a plant regimen, he could already tell something was getting better. Thursday afternoon, before my third lecture on the day, he walked in there and he said, my neuropathy is completely gone. How many days was that? 4, if it's Thursday, if you count Sunday, because we did feed him a meal on Sunday. It's amazing, friends, and we see that over and over. That neuropathy is reversible, and the diabetes is curable, but it has to be a whole plant regimen. And it's not bad. God has blessed Neva. You know, when we were married, she told me, she said, I don't know how to cook. And talk to me a minute, dear. Did they give you a microphone? They're supposed to give you a microphone so you can interrupt me whenever it's necessary. Thank you.
Wow.
Did you tell me that kind of thing, that you really didn't know how to cook?
Yeah. I knew how to make a Betty Crocker brownie mix or, things like that, macaroni and cheese out of a box, whatever.
Yeah.
But, to really cook a meal, it took a lot of time and effort, but I was interested. I've always thought it was fun, and especially when we started doing this way of eating,
Yeah.
it was a challenge to try to make it taste good, look good, and
When we
all of
first
that.
started, I'm sorry, dear, finish what you were saying.
No, that's
Okay,
That's
I
it.
kind of thought you were done, but we started doing this because of 2 physician friends that I mentioned this morning, teaching us before anybody out there was doing this thing. And God blessed Neva. She cooperated and worked hard, and I don't want to embarrass her, but I think that probably a number of you in here that have eaten from her table, and you would agree with me, the food is fabulous. People come off the street into our home to eat, and they think the food is fabulous. So it's possible. Does it take more work, dear?
At first it does, but I guess maybe as time goes by, you learn little ways to make it go easy, that you can make it more efficient.
Yeah, it's
and
amazing to me. I
freeze
come
things
walking in, and
yeah,
we both come walking in from maybe been in town or something, and the 10 minutes, 15 minutes later, we're sitting down at this wonderful meal. Of course, she has stuff that she makes.
the challenge is today there's so much already prepared that you can go and buy already made in the freezer section or whatever.
And it's good or bad.
And so it's bad.
Yeah.
There's nothing
Yeah.
hardly that's worth eating, but
Well, it fills you up and it
make-
tastes good, so
yeah.
people do it. Yeah.
to make it out of scratch, kind of cooking that we do,
Yeah.
does take more time.
All right. Now, I don't know why I'm not getting volume here. Let's see what's going on.
Palm oil in a cracker, oil in
This is Caldwell Esselstyn. He has kind of taken over the fathership that John McDougall started. He's written several books, and this is hard to hear, but this is what he teaches. And let me use the microphone like I'm supposed to, right? Let's see if we can get him here.
oil injures endothelial cells.
Can you hear him? Endothelial cells are cells that line arteries or cells that line capillaries and so forth. So I'm going to back him up one more time. What did he say injures those? Oil.
Oil injures endothelial cells. Olive oil, corn oil, soybean oil, safflower oil, sunflower, coconut oil, palm oil, oil in a cracker, oil in bread, oil in a salad dressing.
The coconut oil miracle is that it's still on the market. And so when we just hear little clips on the news, maybe on the internet, says olive oil's the way to go, we grab onto that. And unfortunately, it's bad information.
Wow. Don't all of you know that olive oil is good for you? Say yes. Now you know that it's what? Bad for you. Here's what happens. The moment you take, was that my phone? I don't hear it anymore. The moment you take a piece of oil out of a plant, and by the way, all plants have oil in them. There are 4 plants that are high in oil. You know what they are? I mentioned them. Olives, avocados, nuts, and seeds. Yeah. When you take that oil out of there, it oxidizes, and it's now toxic. And one of the biggest concerns is you're going to gain weight from it. But what did I mention already early is one of the biggest problems? Cancer. Already in 1976, they showed that even though there was a big drop in heart disease death, there was this enough increase in cancer that the overall death rate was unchanged. Amazing story. So he's talking about this. Let me have him continue.
Everybody says, well, gosh, Dr. Esselstyn, it's so hard. Aren't they going to have some of these places have oil? Yeah, all of them. When the waiter or the waitress comes to your table, you turn in your seat, take your glasses off, look them squarely in the eye.
Now, Neva doesn't like this portion. So we want to, and I'm not saying that to be cute. I have great respect for Neva's opinions. And she thinks that he's maybe over the top. But just listen.
You must understand that I am deathly allergic to a single drop
He's talking to the waiter, correct? Okay.
of any oil. Now, you get creative. You will lose weight. You will lose your high blood pressure. You will lose your diabetes. You will feel better. You will lose your risk for stroke. You will lose your risk for dementia. So there are side effects.
Now, in a way, isn't that pretty cool? And you must understand, folks, this man among a group of, a few dozen physicians is at the top of his game. He's not just talking. All of this. I know him quite well. In fact, he shares with me from time to time the latest research he's done. It's remarkable, friends, how effective this can be. Now, these are the things that he said a person would lose: weight, hypertension, feel better, the diabetes would go away, lose your risk for stroke, lose your risk for dementia. Is that a lot of stuff, friends? All because of what? That the general public thinks is just wonderful for you. And I mentioned yesterday, I don't think it was this morning, that the moment, I mentioned this a minute ago, the moment you take that piece of oil out of the plant that you're using, whether it's peanuts or whatever it is, it starts oxidizing and it becomes toxic to the body. And if you take that oil, even though it's in the fridge in a bottle, and you pour it in a frying pan and you raise the temperature to fry some pancakes or something, you increase the oxidization of the oil by 2 million times. We're just killing ourselves, folks, by the way we prepare food. It's amazing. And it's such a blessing. I don't want to repeat this too many times this evening, that God has brought people like Neva, and a number of you people probably too, with skills to change all of this. Now, this is one of the most interesting pictures in our talk this evening, or starting this particular portion. Let's just say that this is measuring how much insulin our body is making. This axis, I'm sorry for the word. And this is time, maybe years. And so I'm not going to put a number here, but our body is making insulin. It's up and down, maybe a little bit, depending on various situations. But I'm just saying, let's say it's about this much. Are you all with me in what I'm drawing so far? I'm showing you how much insulin the body is making. And most Americans, that's why I said to you this morning, those of you that were here, most Americans, their bodies are making more and more insulin above what would be a normal level using this line. Because of the way we're eating and preparing food, we need more insulin. And this increased insulin is flowing everywhere in your body. And the problem here is it's flowing right through the brain. And what we now know is causing, there are some genetic situations that we'll look at too, but the main cause, friends, of Alzheimer's disease is the increased level of insulin that every American is getting in their bodies. Almost every American. And you don't know this is happening. Your body is doing this. Are y'all following what I'm describing? Your body is, instead of making the normal insulin that would be safe, it's increasing the insulin all the time. And finally, your body is needing so much insulin that it can't keep up this increasing curve. And so that's what happens. Your body can't make that much anymore. And this is when you're finally diagnosed with diabetes. And all these years, this extra insulin is flowing through your brain. And you've heard this already. It has become accepted in the medical literature that Alzheimer's disease is type 3 diabetes. They're using that phrase to talk about this situation. Are y'all clear on this? I don't want to have anybody feel like they didn't understand what I was trying to describe. Okay. Now, I'm going to play a video. I'm going to turn the sound off because I'm going to start and stop it. There, the sound is off. I'm going to start and stop it and describe what's going on. What do you think this double layer of balls with 3 little legs on each ball, 2 layers, what do you think that is? Thank you. Who said that? Did the rest of you know that this is the wall of a cell? It's on the board. And I'm trying to show you that these 2 lines, and here I tried to draw, these are all fatty particles, a little top with 3 little legs, all the way around every cell in our bodies, a double layer of them. And this is a cartoonish picture of it, of course. This is not a photograph of the actual thing, but it's very accurate in its description. And guess what this thing is? It's a protein, and what it does actually, I'll show you, and let's see, I want to be able to start and stop this thing and remember which key to press. There's the cell membrane, and this gadget sticking up there is an insulin receptor. So this protein that your body makes, and we scientists have named it an insulin receptor. Do you remember that I told you that there were receptors on the cell surface? This is an example of that. So that when an insulin particle, chemical, comes floating by, this protein would grab it and pull it down inside the cell where the insulin is needed to process the fats that are here. And, I did what I wasn't supposed to do. It won't be too long to catch back up. Those of you that have Macs may sympathize with me. You can't touch the screen. You have to touch the K key. So here comes an insulin molecule, and what happens? The receptor grabs it, and it's going to try to pull it down inside the cell. And the little cartoonish picture is using a little ball. It's not a ball, it's actually a chemical that the receptor makes to help get this thing from outside the cell to inside the cell where it's needed. And because of all these little fatty particles, that signal does not get through. So the cell can't get enough insulin, and what does the body do? It starts making more insulin, which is what for us? Bad for us. This extra insulin is causing problems. And what is causing all of these yellow particles to show up inside the cell? It's our high-fat diets, especially the oils. Now, this is just one problem. Esselstyn mentioned several issues with the insulin, extra insulin, didn't he? Are you all with me on that? What are the things he mentioned? Dementia. What else did he mention? You remember? A decreased risk for stroke or an increased risk for stroke, whichever way is going on here. Several issues here, including dementia. So, cut the amount of fat down that you're eating. Don't eat all of these oils, and or use them as a whole plant. When I'm eating an olive, am I getting some oil? Yeah. In fact, is there any plant out there that does not have oil in it? No. Every plant has oil in it. Some more. But they all have oils in them. And as soon as I am using a whole plant regimen, the signal comes down, and I'm going to call this thing right here a sugar grabber. It has a very fancy name, but what it does is it goes up and pokes through the wall of the cell and allows the sugar to pour into the cell. I'm sorry, the insulin to pour. It is the sugar, forgive me. It allows the sugar to pour into the cell, if you will, under the control of these little sugar grabbers. So it's the high-fat diet, of course, that makes us an overweight people, right? And that causes the diabetes. It's just amazing, friends, how quickly the diabetes will go away. Now, most of you don't have diabetes. Probably very few of you have diabetes. But you're probably on the road to what? Type 3. So you can make a huge difference, folks, immediately if you would do this. Now, what's the problem with doing it? Talk to me. Raise your hand and let me see who you are. Who just spoke?
It's difficult, especially if you're working, to make the time
To find the time.
find the time to do the process correctly.
Yeah. Now, as a matter of fact, Neva, by God's grace, has become a very, I should get her out of the room when I'm saying this, a very, very accomplished food prep lady. And in minutes, she can have I say minutes, depending on how complex it is. You can learn from her and her cookbook. How many of you had her cookbook before you ever came here this weekend? There's a number of you. And if you've used it very much, almost everybody says this. Oh, the description's in there. I can make it happen if I just follow what you say. Are you all with me what I'm trying to describe? It works. And what a blessing to have that available for you. But does it take more work? Oh, sure, you can buy stuff ready to eat in the store, and most of it, unless it's just off the produce shelf, what's the problem with most of what you buy in the store that's ready to eat? It's just junk food. It's just junk food, high in fat and made tasty, of course, and it's killing us and giving us type 3 diabetes. Too many calories, come because we're eating these high-fat foods. And I don't know if I've told you this. Fat has 4 times as much calories as other. There's only 3 sources: fat, carbohydrate, and protein. That's the 3 sources of calories: fat, carbohydrate, and protein. And fat has 4 calories per gram, and protein 2. So the fat has a lot more calories. And when I eat foods that are high in fat, I not only gain weight, but I get these other problems. Too many calories. Now let me just show you how this is. The number of calories from some different foods here at the bottom. 500 calories is the top there. 3 ounces of bacon. 3 ounces of chips. The chips, friends, are worse than bacon as far as the calories are concerned. Are you crazy like I am and you like chips? Say yes. Now, we make our own chips out of, here, why don't you tell us how you make the chips? Are you going to have some for them to test? Okay, we make our own chips by buying corn tortillas. I see your hand, just a minute. Corn tortillas are not made with fat. I don't know if you know this. All the rest of the tortillas you buy at the store have fat added. We don't use them. Are y'all with me on this? You got to learn to read labels, friend. You got to know what you're buying. But corn tortillas don't. We make a stack and we chop and make them look like little triangles, and you put them on a baking sheet, and they're quite delicious. I'll confess, folks, I love those high-fat chips, but I just don't eat them. We just don't buy them or eat them. And it's nice to have something to take their place. Neva, you're going to come back and do what for us? Okay. Who had your hand up? Go ahead.
Another way you can start doing this kind of cooking is like in her cookbook, you can take a recipe just once a week.
Hold it up so people can hear you.
Just once a week, get the ingredients and just start in.
Yeah. Just start small. Don't try to do it all at once. Yeah, start small. Dear, were you going to? Well, I'm not done, but I thought you had something good to say. So do it. I'll never be done, dear. You know that.
So I was just inspired to say, because I do want to give all the glory to God, and all of you to know that what he did for me, he'll do for you.
Amen.
Because I didn't know how to boil rice, hardly.
She had to call her mother up after we were married and say, how do you boil rice?
And, so then when I was writing this cookbook, I just wanted so much to be able to make these recipes
Keep it close to you.
so that they would be easy to follow and so that they would turn out good. And I just really prayed over every one of these recipes. Lord, help me to know how to write this. I don't know what to say to make the recipes turn out good and taste good and be easy for people to follow. And
But he
little
helps
by
you.
little, he'll help us and he'll help you. And so that was the message I wanted to make clear. And like Jim was saying, those chips, they're really easy to make. Maybe I'll have them tomorrow night, give you a sample of those along with the ice cream that we're going to serve. It's kind of a funny combination, but I just want you to see that. And then tonight we're going to give you a sample of the tofu walnut balls. I just wanted to show this book here, just because this is being streamed, and just want you to see that. And
You can buy it
also
online.
on page 40 and 41, it's page 41, there's this little recipe here called tofu walnut balls. And they're just such a favorite. It's so simple, they're not hard to make. And one recipe makes about 40 balls, depending on the size that you do. And they can be frozen. And you can just use those, in all kinds of dishes, spaghetti with meatballs or anything, a sandwich or anyway.
Mash it out on a sandwich.
Yeah. So, like somebody else was saying, just make a little start and you can do this. That's the message.
Okay. All right. What about a potato? People think potatoes are fattening. That is just so not the case. It's what you put on the potatoes, right? Potatoes are wonderful food, really wonderful food. Bread, broccoli. Isn't it amazing? If we would not eat this junk food, we would all be in good health. The dementia would virtually disappear. Amazing. This is the furnace. This is a drawing of a cell with the top kind of cut off. And this is the furnace in which our fat, carbohydrate, or protein are burned to give us energy. And the preferred food is sugar. You say, what? Not this kind of sugar, friends. Or this. Or this. Well, the banana's fine. This is the kind of sugar you want. Are y'all with me? Or this. Or this. Or this. Good stuff, would you say? Yeah. Amazing. Do you know how many varieties of legumes there are in the world? Anybody have an idea? Over 19,000 varieties. I hate lentils. Is that okay? Say yes. Because there's 18,999 other kinds of legumes I could try. Y'all with me? Don't make somebody eat something they don't like. Figure out how to make something that they do like, right? Take a little work, of course. Now, this is one of our favorites. That waffle that people ordinarily make is unhealthy. Why? Got egg in there and fat, right? In the restaurant, the first months that it was open, I worked there quite a bit. And I made the waffles. Now, Neva and I disagree on this, but it doesn't matter. It's a small one. Out of oatmeal, water, and salt. Just blend it up in there and pour it in a waffle iron. Amazing. You can make and of course there's a recipe in the book. And the blueberries, is it okay to sweeten those blueberries with a little sugar? Yes, it is. Yeah. Are the blueberries quite low in fat? Yeah. All the plants except for 4 categories are low in fat. Y'all with me on that? It's amazing, friends, in a way how easy this is. And the ice cream, how do you make the ice cream, dear? Do you still have the microphone? She's going to show you.
I'm going to give you a sample of that tomorrow, but the recipe is in the book.
Just tell us how you make it. Make it out of...
You just put in your blender a can of coconut milk, a cup of cashew nuts, and blend that all up smooth. Add some dates. I use dates, honey. You could use a little sugar, but it depends what you're able to do and what you have. And blend it, and then add some ice cubes. But you have to have a high-speed blender to make that really easily. But, in time, you can come up with that. If you don't have a high-speed blender, you can just blend it thin. And don't blend ice into it. And put that
Don't blend ice
mixture
cubes
in
in
the
it? Is
freezer.
that what you were saying?
And when it thickens, when it gets hot, gets frozen, then you can put those cubes cut up into your blender or food processor and blend them up. And
Dear, I
there's different
interrupted you.
ways.
Repeat that whole thing again.
Well, the cookbook actually gives you how to do that, either
Okay.
with a high-speed blender, or if you just have a KitchenAid or something and do it, in a low-speed blender, or a bullet, or one of those small ones that just makes a smoothie. You can make ice cream in that. You just have to put enough frozen things in it to make it thick.
Yeah.
And so there's, a lot of things we can do that we love.
So that waffle palette, if you want to call it something, is perfectly healthy. The berries are wonderful. The ice cream, it's high in calories. Just a minute. It's high in calories. So even though I could enjoy eating a whole bunch of it, I limit myself. But that's a healthy breakfast, wouldn't you agree? And it's every Sunday morning, and every once in a while, Neva will surprise me on another morning of the week, and there she is in making some waffles, and by the way, make a note of this. Just a sec, I got two, don't forget, and I'm going to come to her. When you make that ice cream, and we put it in these plastic containers that are about that big around, about that tall, little lids, pushes on it, kind of like old Tupperware stuff. When you take it out of the freezer, it's as hard as a rock. So you have to give it some time to melt and squeeze it up a little bit until it's kind of sturdy like ice cream would be, and it's just fine. You were next, and then Jerry. Oh, what should she do, dear, if she's allergic to raw cashews? Microphone?
Use some other nut instead of, she's allergic to cashews. Almonds, or even don't even use the nuts, just use coconut milk. And garbanzos, I don't know.
They're
I've
not
never
high enough
tried
in
that.
fat, probably.
It might give it an unusual taste, but maybe not. I've never tried it.
Yeah.
Because if you flavor it,
Yeah.
Brazil nuts there.
Now,
Anyway, there's other.
I see another
there's lots of
hand. I'll
other
come to you,
things.
sir. That's right. I apologize. And go to.
I was going to see you guys to come on and do a demo.
Oh. Sir, I don't think you have a microphone, so speak up. You can if you want, but it's not good for you. Yeah, it's bad for you. Yeah.
No, but there are some that are good. You have to really look, but there's some that are plant-based. I know of one that's made with coconut milk. And
You have to read the
Yeah.
ingredients, but in general, what you buy in the stores is what's killing us. And so, a lot of these things you make yourself, and you get to the place where it's going to take extra work to do it, but it's probably worth it to avoid dementia. Ah. You can get the cookbook so you know the ingredients and make it. It's easy to make. It's amazing. And yeah, good. Amen.
And let me say that the waffles, I keep the ingredients for the waffles, I put them all together in a jar so that you have all the dry ingredients. You
Except-
make your own waffle mix.
Except,
And that recipe is in here too, to make a waffle mix.
dear, all the
Except-
ingredients except,
Oh, except the liquid, of
Okay.
course. But all the dry ingredients you keep in a jar, put that in your blender along with some water, turn it on, blend it, pour it. It's so easy. It's almost easier than any breakfast that we make. So.
yeah. Anybody else? Yes. Use the microphone,
Yes,
dear.
you can use spices. I mean, of course, there are some that we don't use just because they're too stimulating, and pepper and I don't know. There's some things that it's best not to use, but maybe in time. That I think that was my problem with the thing about the single drop of oil that Esselstyn recommends in there. We don't want to overwhelm you. Do these things a step at a time, unless you are really sick and need to just do it soon. But for
That's
most
really
of
good
us-
counsel. Could you all
Yeah.
hear what she said clearly? Don't overload yourself. The problem there is we're all weak and we tend to start something and then don't keep on. But it's very good counsel that she's giving. Yeah, our habits. Sure. Sure. Well, I hope you didn't get the idea that
You
it's...
should, you should say the question.
Oh, thank you. He said, can you get too much sugar? I hope you didn't get the idea that we think it's okay to use very much sugar at all. So please understand that. If something is just, if some fruit you blended up doesn't taste very well and a little sugar would help it taste better, sure. But the stuff you buy in the store is just It's just an abomination. Look at how sick Americans are, folks, and it's just because of what they buy in the stores. Yeah.
I've been lactose intolerant for most of my life and everything.
Okay.
So one of the things that I did for ice cream replacement, and I kind of stole it from somebody, was if everybody know what a champion juicer
Sure,
is, it's a masticating.
sure.
So you use that and freeze bananas.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then shove those through it with
Yeah.
your strawberries.
A lot of
blueberries, or
people do
whatever,
that.
And it's
A lot of
it's
people do that.
Great replacement.
Yeah. Honey is essentially sugar, so you use it sparingly. But the problem with the stuff you buy in the store is just way too much. A small amount of sugar to make something tasty is just fine. In fact, if you get the fruit ripe, it's very tasty because of sugar and other things. But
You mean
Problem is-
natural sugar in the fruit?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But added sugar, is it
Well,
the same
added
as the
sugar
natural sugar?
is the
in
same
fruit?
sugar that's in the fruit. The problem is when you buy a jar of it, that's a lot. You'd have to eat several cases of pears, let's say, to get the same amount of sugar that you'd find in 1 cup of sugar or less. So that's the problem is that when we buy stuff that somebody made to give you because you'll buy it and eat it because it tastes good, you can almost guarantee that it's bad. So let's keep going a little bit here. High carb, low fat, low protein is what we want. Carbohydrates, if they come from a whole plant food, are perfect fuel. And we don't need very much fat or very much protein. And you get that from plants, unless you refine them. These are the other things that are in plants that we do need. You all know about that. I don't know if you know about phytochemicals. I'd love to tell you the story, but we have found thousands of substances in plants that are good for us that are mostly lost in producing food for the public. They're called phyto because they're tiny, if you will. They are chemicals. Listen, everything we eat is chemicals, is it not? Yeah, it's all chemicals. Okay. And the nice thing about carbohydrate, there's no smoke in the chimney. Pure carbohydrate. And of course, we get lots of energy from it. Did I hear somebody start to speak?
Well, what do you mean by no smoke in the chimney? I'm not sure we
That's a
understand that.
metaphor. If there's smoke in the chimney, it's junk food. You know.
So what is the chimney? I want take us a little farther.
Yeah. Carbohydrate burns clean and it's powerful. Wonderful, wonderful fuel for us. It's amazing how Americans have been taught that carbohydrates are bad for you. It's the fat and the protein that burn dirty. There's substances that are there that are not good for us if we use very much of it. I don't even want to read this, the chemicals that are there that are bad for us when we use very much fat or very much protein. This is an interesting case. Do you know that big red thing in the shuttle was actually a fuel tank? Did you know that it was 2 fuel tanks? Did you know that the top tank was oxygen and the bottom tank was hydrogen? Did you know that the bottom tank has exactly twice as much fuel as the top tank? Because when you burn hydrogen and oxygen, you know what you get? Water. So you know what's coming out of the tailpipe? Water vapor. Amazing. There it is. Water. And yeah, pretty hot. And when you add carbon, which is in foods, you get carbon dioxide, which is fine, and you get water. So when you burn carbohydrates, CHO, I'd mentioned this already, you get carbon dioxide, water, and energy. It's perfect fuel. Sugar is perfect fuel, but it needs to come with all the things that God put in the plant with it. And there's the furnace again. Let's take a look at this ear of corn. Let's remove all the carb from the corn. Let's remove all the protein. We're just doing this mental exercise. Let's remove all the vitamins and minerals and the fiber. What in the world is left? Fat. Fat has left. Oh, some phytochemicals as well. And it will take 18 ears of corn, I think it's 18, to give us 1 tablespoon of oil. If you refine that corn, take the oil out, it would take 18 ears of corn to give us 1 tablespoon of oil, which is 100 calories, it just turns out. Could you eat 18 ears of corn at a meal? Probably not. But we do that easily by eating the oil, don't we? Y'all with me in what I'm saying? Yeah, it's easy to eat a tablespoon of oil or more, and we end up throwing away, the rest of it. This is the problem. Doesn't everybody know that potatoes are bad for you? I say that tongue in cheek. It's perfect food. A potato will give you about 200 calories, but if you make that potato into potato chips, and it's a bag that says there's 1,000 calories in this bag, you only got 200 calories from the potato. Where did the other 800 calories come from? From oil. How many tablespoons of oil would it take? Each tablespoon has 100 calories. You got to put 8 tablespoons of oil with that potato to make it to potato chips. And it's bad for us. This is the kind of thing we do without thinking. We just buy it. Tastes good. It tastes good to me. I'm sure it does to you too. But just to show you the kind of thing that's going on when you use prepared foods that are already prepared. So let's just see for fun how many ears of corn it would take to give us those 8 tablespoons of oil. It would take 14 ears of corn. I'm sorry, what were you saying? It would end up taking 112 ears of corn to give you the oil that you need in that bag of potato chips. It's just crazy, friends. And so, bad news. Let's take a moment on this in quitting, I guess. What is A1C? It's a percentage of how much of the hemoglobin has a sugar attached to it instead of another chemical, which should have been there. So the more sugar in your blood, the more hemoglobin gets sugar on it. And scientists have figured that out, and so they measure how much there is there in this hemoglobin molecule, and they can tell you then how much sugar is in your blood. That's what it does. It actually tells you in an indirect way how much sugar is in your blood. And the average life of a red blood cell is 3 months maybe. And so the A1C indicates the average blood sugar for about 3 months. The A1C that you measure right now tells you what your average blood sugar has been for the last 3 months. And so it's an easy way to measure what's really going on in your body. And I'm going to pass this up to show you something interesting. This is the level of A1C that indicates that your sugar level has been too high. 5.8. And 6.5 is where we say diabetes would be indicated. And I should have mentioned that sometimes if the A1C is even higher, of course, there's a problem there. Now, one day, Dr. McCann and I and 2 or 3 other doctors were lecturing at a lifestyle program, and what's his name? Another physician brought the first little gadget where you could go around and test people and know what their A1C is in about 10 seconds. He paid about $8,000 for it. Today you can get them for $15, but he thought that would be fun to have, and he was going around checking all of the guests that were there because of their diabetes, And then he started checking the staff. And I thought, you know, I eat a lot of stuff. Maybe I better go hide somewhere. So I went around the corner and found a chair someplace. And my dear friend Jim McCann, we've been buddies forever. By the way, his A1C was 5.2. How's that on the schedule? He's okay, isn't he? And he saw me hiding in the corner. And he said, hey, check Jim's. And so I guess you could say I was stuck and had to give up and let them test my blood. My A1C turned out to be 4.5. Even though we're eating those homemade chips and Neva makes cookies and
Ice cream.
Is that amazing or not, friends? It's absolutely amazing that we can make food that we really like if we make it with, you know, a good recipe. And Jim was a runner. He ran about 5-6 miles every day. I never could get into running. I just don't like it. I would rather go out and work, cut trees down and whatever, than just go out and run. But it's amazing, friends, that using the 7 Secrets or anybody else who has written a cookbook with similar emphasis, how effective it is. In Eugene. Yeah, Jim and I were friends forever. We did our graduate degrees in public health together. And we've lectured together all over the world and all over this country. Of course, you know, we lost him about 8 years ago now or something like that. Just broke my heart when I heard he was sick. Something else. Well, okay, I think that's enough. Whole plant foods and use the whole edible portion. No refined foods. And eat all you want. Well, you could overeat, but overeating, folks, is a problem really only when it's bad food. By the time you fill your stomach and you're uncomfortable because you've eaten so much, if it was good food, you're probably going to be okay. Are you all with me on that? It's the junk food that's the issue when we talk about overeating. And are you the guy who was the one wanting to stop smoking? If you want to fly yourself up to our place and live with us for a few days, I'll get you off your cigarettes. I'll tell you what we'll do. No cigarettes, just like that. And you'll be miserable, but I'll walk with you, and you will... we've done this for thousands of people. Sometimes we would have 50, 60 smokers. And we rented a camp up in Washington State that had these cottages where people could stay. And, of course, they made sure they didn't bring cigarettes on the compound. And they feel horrible for a couple of days. But they all quit. It's hardly ever the case that somebody leaves. They can leave. They can leave anytime they want. It hardly ever happened. They stayed there. The biggest problem is that over time, 95% of those people or more will start smoking again. But I can help you get off of it and really be off of it. So anybody, if you know somebody, we don't run these stop smoking programs anymore, but when I heard you speak, it just tore my heart out for you. I did that with a fellow in the church. He's just coming to church. He's not a member of the church. He came and lived in one of our cottages, and he quit smoking. And he stayed off smoking for 2 or 3 months, and then one day he slipped. And it's really sad because it's such a challenge, but there's a way to do it. Statins. It would be way better to simply change your lifestyle and really change it. Remember I told you, friends, that heart attacks occur 99% of the time because the soft plaque that's been kind of chucked onto the lining of the artery causes a blood clot. Are you all, does that sound familiar to you? Yeah. You can make that soft plaque safe in several days of living like this. So you can just virtually eliminate the chance of a heart attack if you will really follow the program. I'll come to you in a minute. And the problem is long term. It's tough, but which is high. But if you will follow this program, it will drop, and that soft plaque will be safe in just several days. It's amazing how quickly you reduce the risk of that soft plaque causing a blood clot, which is, again, what percentage of heart attacks occur from the soft plaque making a blood clot? 99% of them. And that soft plaque will be safe in a few days. Amazing. Lipitor, a statin. Yeah, I don't know what the connection would be there, but rather than starting with statins, get on this lifestyle. It is amazing. This pastor that walked in there, isn't that amazing? In 4 days, his neuropathy. What does the average physician, don't throw rocks at them for this, what does the average physician tell a patient who has, help me say the word, neuropathy? No, what does he say to them? You can't get over it. You can't get over it. Take statins. It's a lie. You can make that go away in days on this lie. Now, you can't cheat on this thing if you want the result. So.
In neuropathy, if you had
It's a question I don't know the answer to. My guess would be yes, for sure. She said, if you had chemotherapy, could you reverse the neuropathy? I would be very surprised if the answer was no. Very surprised.
last night I asked a question about butter and margarine.
Yes.
If they have the same grams of fat. Or same fat.
Butter and margarine are both bad. Stop using them.
So what?
Simple butter, page 56 in the cookbook.
Okay. Butter. Thank you.
Simple butter. It's
just coconut milk and cornmeal cooked together and blended
And
with a little
seasoned.
butter flavored salt, and that's all. It's easy.
Yeah, it's amazing, friends. We've served it at the restaurant for years. We had that restaurant open for 10 years, and people would always say, this is great, I like it, it's fine. So, use it. Amazing. Yes. Tastes good on everything.
And corn on the cob and baked potatoes.
I'm sorry, dear.
Corn on the cob, baked potatoes.
Yeah. It's because she's putting butter-flavored salt in it. That's why it tastes good. And it's fatty a little bit because it's being made with some coconut milk. Yeah. Amazing. And that pastor and many others got well using coconut butter at our house. Got well. Junk. Folks, you've got to learn to read labels.
Well, what do you mean? How do you know they're junk? Coconut drinks.
I just know they're junk because when anybody makes something for you to buy that you like, it'll be junk.
No, that's not true. Coconut drinks. Coconut water.
Read the ingredients.
Yeah.
Well, read the ingredients and then don't buy it and use it.
You mentioned salt in the butter. What type of salts do you use?
Doesn't matter. You can get into all kinds of arguments, blue salt, pink salt, whatever. Forget it. Just use some salt. Just use some salt. People get off on tracks because they think it's going to be a health thing. And no, just whatever salt you like is fine. And that's enough for tonight. Okay. Tomorrow night, okay. It's going to be on, what did I say it was going to be on? I got to think about it for a second. No, dementia was tonight. Yeah. I'll think of, cancer. The whole thing on cancer. Yeah. Yeah. You'll enjoy what I'm going to share with you on this whole issue with cancer.
And you'll get to taste the ice cream.
And you don't have to read the ingredients on Neva's labels. You just eat what she makes. Okay? Okay. God bless you all. By the way, friends, be careful that you don't start pushing this stuff on other people, especially your family members. Make something good. Maybe don't even tell them what it is. And if they like it, don't say, oh, good, it was healthy. Don't even tell them it was healthy.
I need to ask the pastor a question. Ain't they CD programs online?
Oh, because they were streamed. They can watch it online.
And is it also in YouTube?
Yeah, yeah, it would be. Get the rest of my water here. My black brother, where's he at? I want to talk to him.